met with or have met with you and said that they're, maybe think about moving on, trying their luck somewhere else?
No, there has not. And we have not had our post-fall meetings yet. So that's always a possibility. Every school does it different. Some schools work out with 50 to 60 guys in the fall. We have a much smaller number. And we will have to make a couple tweaks to our roster before opening day. And so we will have those post-fall meetings here in the next week or so, just to kind of summarize for each guy how we thought they did, what their role is, et cetera. And then, once you have those meetings, sometimes you get some movement, but I wouldn't anticipate a whole lot, if any.
Colin?
Mark, any tendencies from press conferences jump off the tape at you?
Well, outside of what I led off with, I mean, Colin, I could go to town on some of your tendencies, and obviously we know John lays in the weeds and then likes to kind of hit you, about the second quarter, maybe the beginning of the second half of the press conference. Mike, I'll always ask you a very in-depth, well thought out question. And so I could probably go on and on, but I'll leave it at that. And I'll save the rest of my evaluations of you guys for another day.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned Roman going through some things. Is there a timetable of when you kind of like to have an answer on what his prognosis is?
It'll be fairly soon. Again, it's a little bit of a privacy issue with him right now in terms of just working through some things and meeting with doctors and all those things. But when he's comfortable, when our doctors and athletic trainers are comfortable making the next step and then announcing that, you'll know.
Michael?
Well, Mark, I'm glad you think my questions are well thought out. Hopefully this one is too. But I remember you the last time we did this talking about the importance of building cohesion among this team and trying to get guys together. I remember you talking about going to Fort Jackson with all these guys too. Now that you've been able to scrimmage, get out on the field, go against each other, how has that process been going? And have any guys stood out in terms of just personality? They're bringing leadership, they're bringing things along those lines.
Yeah, it's gone very well. And we've made a concerted effort and have tried to be intentional with trying to build that camaraderie among this team. And I think the guys have really put forth a lot of effort to try to do that. As you mentioned, we have done multiple Fort Jackson visits and we have one more planned for the fall. We took the guys off on an off day and just let them have some fun over at the fair, just to bond. And it doesn't always have to be serious. It doesn't always have to be, all those things. Sometimes you can just let the guys have some fun together. And I think that's a big part of the balancing act of serious, but also enjoying the process and the climate. We've had multiple early morning workouts just so they can all sacrifice together. And so it's been very, very good. We've had some returning players really step up, the Halls, the Sanders, the Mahoneys of the world. Wimmer is more of a lead by example guy, but he's come to practice and worked at a higher level and with more enthusiasm than he ever has. And then some of the new guys have done a nice job too. I think Will McGillis is a guy that the guys really look to as just a very good veteran presence, a guy that they look to see how is he handling things. And so it's been a really good mix. I think we're very fortunate right now how the talent has come together here and how the personalities and the chemistry has come together. So very pleased with that.
John Whittle?
Yeah, going into last season, I probably the chief point offensively was to cut down strikeouts. Come through the fall, what did Monty really want to focus on, and how do you feel like the guys progressed offensively there? Where did you see the biggest strides offensively?
Yeah, I think a constant emphasis with how we've always tried to do it, and Monty has really built on it and done a really nice job, is swing decisions and plate discipline. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a speed guy or whether you're a power guy, you have to be swinging at the right pitches. And that's been a constant emphasis for our guys. And Monty has helped, and worked on guys and shown them how to work on their bat speed. He's worked on a lot of different drills, and he's a big believer in using machines, like, kind of like when we first started here. And he's even taken it to a higher level from a creativity standpoint, and is a big believer in challenging the hitters. And I think that's been huge. And I think our plate discipline and just the general swing patterns of a lot of guys is continuing to evolve and improve. And he's done a really nice job with it. And again, the best teams in college baseball are the ones that just grind you every at bat, every pitch. Texas A&M is probably the poster child for that from last year. They were just, every guy that came to the plate was tough to get out. And that's what we want. We want guys, whether you're a speed guy or a power guy or somewhere in between, we just want guys to give us tough at bats, swing at the right pitches, be able to lay off balls. You know, it's very simplistic stuff, but difficult to really do at the highest levels of college baseball, because the average fastball is 94, and then there's nasty sliders and changeups and curveballs and everything that a pitcher can do to try to get you out and force you to make bad decisions. But that's been a heavy emphasis, is that we're just going to really grind pitchers out, and every guy that walks to the plate, every pitch is a decision you need to make, and the more good decisions we make, the better off we'll be.
Colin?
Mark, you kind of talked even before the fall started about Jack Mahoney being a potential star coming off Tommy John. Just what have you seen from him, and kind of what does his role maybe look like on this pitching staff moving forward?
Obviously, he's very clearly in the running as a weekend starter. His last outing was his best. I thought throughout the fall, he progressively got better and better and better. You know, having come off the Tommy John 2 years ago now, almost. And his last outing in Game 3 of the World Series, he really set the tone. And that was a fun game to watch, because it was him versus Noah Hall, and two guys obviously that are right there in the middle of the running for weekend rotation guys. And they were both really good. Jack's fastball was up to 97 this fall, and generally sat in that 95 to 97 range. The slider has gotten better. All his pitches are much better than what they were when he pitched as a freshman, and he had an ERA in the ones as a freshman. So he's a huge guy for us. He's a very key guy. He's one of the leaders on the team, and he's got a chance to have a tremendous year. If he just keeps building on what he's done throughout the fall, he's got a chance to be as good as anybody out there.
Dave?
Mark, everybody always wants to know about the opening series and those 3 non-conference series outside of Clemson. Are you at liberty to say who you got this year?
Not yet, David, and I should have known by studying the tape that would be your next go-to question. So I apologize for not covering that up as well. But yeah, we'll get to that fairly soon. Again, there's still a couple games on the schedule where we're just trying to iron out the final details, whether it's game times, whether it's just the minutia of game contracts and all those things. So I think you'll be seeing that fairly soon.
Michael?
You mentioned Wimmer earlier, kind of leading by example, and watching him these last couple of seasons. I mean, it's obvious the tools that he has, the speed, some of the power he's flashed. Also seems like maybe there's another gear in there too. You know, what have you seen from him this fall? What have you seen from him, throughout his career here, and what kind of year do you expect from him? Is there more out of Wimmer that we might be able to see?
Absolutely. I look at him, number one, as a developing player still. He's been here a while, but he's still a developing player. I think his improvement curve is still going up because of his athleticism, because of the nature of his body type. Sometimes those guys take a little bit longer to put it all together. But I look at a guy, a couple of years ago, he had 27 extra base hits. I think he can do that. I think he's a guy that can steal 20 bases. And again, he's working at a level of enthusiasm. I don't think he's ever enjoyed a team or the game as much as he's doing right now. And I think that is going to show in his play. And on top of that, we've given him a chance to get a lot of run at shortstop all fall. And he's played a better shortstop than I ever dreamed he could play. His arm is healthy. He's in great shape. His range is incredible. And he didn't make an error all fall there. So he's square in the middle of that competition at shortstop. And I think his best days are ahead of us, both for us right now and in his future once he eventually moves into pro ball. As you know, he was drafted last July now, and he decided to come back. And I think that says a lot about our program, about him being in our program and what he thinks of it. And I think it says a lot about him still believing that he can still improve a lot before he gets to pro ball. So very, very pleased with where Braylon is right now.
Colin?
Yeah, Mark. Eli Jersenbeck had what looked like a really good fall.
Yeah.
Where is he in his development, and how big of a piece is he going to be for you guys this?
He's a big piece. If there's a better freshman pitcher out there in the country. I don't know who it is. Again, when you look at just the raw stuff, it's incredible. It's a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. It's multiple breaking balls that have Major League Baseball spin characteristics. He's a guy that loves to be out there. He's a little quirky and just loves to have fun and compete. And I think his compete level is very high. I think his enjoyment of the game is very high. And so, what role he's in is still to be determined, but he's going to get a lot of big, important innings for us this year. There's no question. And he's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Hardy from the Daily Gamecock.
Hey, Coach. So months ago, you said team building was one of your main goals going into fall practice. Have you seen chemistry grow between players, and how have you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can tell by just how the guys hang out together off the field, how they get along. You can tell how they try to help each other throughout practice. Sometimes you can sense a little tension among guys, and sometimes you can tell they're all trying to help each other. And I very much get the sense that this is a group, whether it's the pitchers or the position players, they're trying to help each other at all times. They're trying to push each other. They're holding each other accountable. They're doing all the things that a very good baseball team needs to do. And so that's been a very good aspect of what we've seen this fall.
Go to John.
Catcher position has obviously been a big deal this fall. How would you assess the growth of those guys back there? How comfortable are you with where they are coming out?
Yeah, we always want to get better. Clearly, you always want to get better, but I think we're in very good hands. Regardless of who we put out there, we'll be in good hands. Obviously, French came in as a transfer this year and has some really good potential to do good things. And if you were here for Game 3 of the World Series for us, you saw what his potential is. He hit a homer. He hit a single for an RBI at 106 miles an hour. He caught well, and so that's why he was brought in here, because on his best days, he's got a chance to be really good. That being said, I think him coming in has really motivated LeCroy and Messina to work harder than they've ever worked, and their games have all taken big steps, both defensively and offensively. So Xander Buchan is our fourth guy. He's brought in, and as a freshman, he'll provide really solid depth for us. But I think you're looking at those guys are all more than capable of catching at a very high level in the SEC.
David?
All right, Mark, I got you this time.
All right, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be the judge of that.
Eister and Seitler were guys that seemingly were around here for a decade, and they've moved on now. So who do you like at that first base spot, and maybe not so much the right field spot, but in the spot where Eister?
Yeah, I would say right now we brought in two guys, two transfer portal guys who are, kind of in the running at first base right now. A lot of guys can play first base. You could always slide McGillis there. Cole Messina could play first base. We've got a lot of guys that can play it. But I'd say right now, again, we have 3 months till the season starts. So nobody's position is locked in right now. They still have a lot to prove. But Gavin Cassis was our best hitter by a good margin this fall, the Vanderbilt transfer. I think he's going to put it all together. He was dominant this fall from a power perspective, from a plate discipline perspective. He was everything you hoped a first baseman, a big left-handed hitter can be. And then right behind him, you have Compton, the Memphis transfer, who was a double-digit home run guy last year, had close to 60 RBIs. He can play first. He can play in the outfield. He can DH. And so I'd say those are the two guys you're looking at right now. And we've been very happy with them so far. But Cassis, in my opinion, is going to have as good an impact on an offense as any player in this league.
John?
Signing day was yesterday. I know last recruiting class, y'all put a big emphasis on just becoming a little bit more athletic, adding some speed and athleticism. Was there any big point of emphasis for you guys that y'all wanted to address with this class?
I mean, I think every class you sign, you want to check some boxes. It's got to start with pitching always, of course. And then you want to make sure you're left-handed enough. You want to make sure you have speed and power. I wouldn't say there was anything out of the ordinary in this class. You're just always trying to accumulate good players that can help you get to Omaha. And then, and as you look at your depth charts, you have a 23 depth chart, a 24 depth chart, and a 25 depth chart that you're trying to make sure you fill in the right holes and the right gaps. And so I think the kids we sign this year will have a chance to help us and and fill some of those holes. But then you always understand now that in 2022 and 23, that we also will keep an eye on the transfer portal, just to make sure that we're never too young, and that we're having players play, that are prepared and ready to play at this level. Sometimes freshmen can do that right away. Sometimes they need a little more time. So in 2023 now, that's a big part of how you're recruiting. So you may see some teams have a little bit smaller classes with an eye on saving some money to do those types of things. But this is a class that it was pretty much a balance between pitching and hitting. And I think we have some guys with some very high-end potential that'll be coming in this class.
Colin?
Probably not a tendency breaker question, but how would you kind of evaluate center field going forward, and what did you see from Stone and Brewer this fall?
You're right. I don't think that's a tendency breaker. I think you always make sure that in your holster you have one bullet that will be a direct question for a very specific position. So Colin, way to stay on brand, way to be consistent. Center field, I think you're looking at three main guys. You're looking at Stone, you're looking at Brewer, and you're looking at Will Tippett, a freshman from Georgia that had a really nice fall. Stone has made a big jump offensively this fall. Monty's done a really nice job with him, and he went out and paid his dues in the Northwoods League this past summer. And generally, that's a league that really helps guys because you play almost every day. It's very similar to pro baseball. And my history in coaching is guys that have gone to the Northwoods League, and because it's not an easy league to play in, some guys want to play less games or not really endure that grind. But him and Messina went there, and also Hornung went there last summer, and they all came back much better players and hitters. And so Stone has a legitimate chance to be out there because his offense has come so far. I think we all know what his defense is. His defense is capable of playing in the major leagues someday if the bat gets close to that. Dylan Brewer can play center or right, and obviously could play left as well. But Dylan is being looked at in center and right field, and had a good fall, hit over 300, stole some bases, and is a good defender, especially in right field. Not quite the defender in center field that Stone is, but more than capable. And then Will Tippett's a switch hitter that's a 6'5" runner. That's going to be kind of a super utility guy for us. He could play third, he could play short, he could play second, he could play any of the three outfield spots. And he's a speed guy that can really spark your lineup from both sides of the plate. So those are the three guys you're most likely to see in center field.
Michael?
You mentioned Stone and Messina, and just curious about just the growth you've seen overall from that freshman class last year. Guys like Braswell too, who had some ups and downs last year. What have you seen from those guys? What are the expectations for those guys going into year two?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer. I've always studied coaching and development and all those things. And Dean Smith, I remember reading Dean Smith say way back when that the biggest jump you'll see in athletes in college is from the freshman to sophomore year. And I think we've seen that with a lot of them. And again, I don't want to forget anybody, because without fail, after a press conference, somebody comes up and says, "Coach, what you forgot about me?" or "Why didn't you mention me?" And so I don't want to have anybody get into their feelings right now, but the sophomores have all made good improvements. And again, a big part of that is, what do you do during the summer? Do you put the work in? Do you get stronger? Are you more experienced because you got to play some as a freshman and then carry those summer bats and innings forward? But yeah, the guys we've already talked about have all made really good strides. LeCroy, Horning, Messina, Braswell is still grinding it out, and he still has some things to work on, but we know on his best days, he's a good player as well. And so very happy with the development of them. So there'll be a lot of competition at just about all the spots, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, transfer, junior, whatever the case may be. I think everybody in this locker room knows that there's a lot of competition because the levels of talent right now are in a good spot at a lot of different positions.
Go to Alan Cole.
Hey, Mark, I don't think I have tendencies here yet, but the other two transfer pitchers you brought in, non-Kimball, Williams and Proctor, how do you kind of evaluate their progress, and where do you see them fitting in at this stage? I know we're still 3 months out, but.
Yeah, Proctor is a back of the bullpen type guy. He's a guy that has had tremendous success in the past, both in college and in summer ball, of statistically having very high strikeout to walk numbers, which is important, of being able to get out of jams. He's a very mature kid, a very calm kid, and he's a competitor, big time competitor. So he's somebody we're very happy that is now a Gamecock. And then Ricky Williams is making good progress. He's a guy that could be considered potentially as maybe a Tuesday guy, could be a key bullpen guy. But we've seen him, look very polished at times this fall. But the competition for innings is going to be very high, maybe as high as any time I've been here. And we've had some really good staffs in my time here. But this might be the most competitive in terms of quality guys fighting for innings. And so I think that works well for everybody. It keeps them working hard, keeps them competitive. It keeps them doing everything necessary to be great. And then by the time they figure that out and we figure out who to pitch, you feel like you're going to have a chance to win that day.
Dave?
Mark, obviously very far before the season, but when it comes to the players' walk-up music, what they come up to when they're going to bat, when they're going to pitch, do you have any input on that? Do you have any rules say we can't do this? I mean, how do you even, deal with that when the guys turn the list into you, if you even look at the list?
All right, Dave. Well, again, that's, in terms of my film study, this is good. This is like running a new play out of a new set with motion. So you throw me off a little bit. I'm not sure whether to play man or zone on that question. So I will say no. I have next to zero input. The only input I have is obviously it has to be fan friendly. It has to be family friendly. There can be no vulgarities, none of it, nothing like that. But I don't force any music on them. If you're a country guy, be a country guy. If you're a hip hop guy, be a hip hop guy. Just whatever helps you to feel confident and comfortable walking to the plate or to the mound, I'm all for, as long as it's within the parameters of being fan and family friendly.